Captain James Walker stood at the observation deck of the EFS Stellar Horizon, watching the stars drift by through the massive reinforced windows. The Supercarrier had been his home for the past 15 years. And now, after 50 years of faithful service to the Earth Federation, she was heading to her final destination. The decommissioning dock waited silently in orbit around Mars, ready to strip away the glory of what was once humanity's greatest military vessel. At nearly 8 kilometers in length, the Stellar Horizon was a testament to humanity's go big or go home philosophy. Alien races had always criticized humans for building oversized ships, calling it a waste of resources. But humans knew better. Bigger meant more room for backup systems, more space for rescue operations, and more power for when you needed it most. "Captain," a voice called from behind him. "Engineering report is ready for your review." Walker turned to face Lieutenant Tom Reed, a young officer who reminded him of himself 30 years ago. "How's the old girl holding up?" "Chief Engineer Miller says all systems are running at acceptable levels, sir. Though she mentioned the power core is showing its age. Probably won't last another month. But we'll make it to Mars." Walker nodded, hiding the sadness in his eyes. 50 years. She's carried 3 generations of crews, fought in 2 wars, and saved more lives than any other ship in the fleet. Hard to believe they're going to turn her into scrap metal. The ship's AI chimed in through the overhead speakers. "Message incoming from Earth Federation Command. Priority level 2. "Put it through," Walker ordered, straightening his uniform. Admiral Hayes's hologram appeared in the center of the observation deck. His expression was grim. "James, we got a situation. How's your fuel reserves?" "Sitting at 62%, sir. More than enough to reach Mars." "Good. I'm sending you new coordinates. There's a mining colony out in the Epsilon sector that's broadcasting some unusual readings. Probably nothing, but you're the closest ship we've got." Walker raised an eyebrow. "Sir, with all due respect, the Horizon is scheduled for decommissioning. We're running on minimal crew, and half our systems are already powered down for final approach." "I understand, James, but something about these readings doesn't sit right with me. Just do a quick flyby, verify everything's okay, and then continue to Mars. That's all I'm asking." "Yes, sir. Sending the coordinates to navigation now." After the Admiral's hologram faded, Walker turned to Lieutenant Reed. "Alert the crew. Tell engineering to bring auxiliary systems back online. Looks like the old girl's got one last mission before she rests." The massive Supercarrier's engines hummed to life as it changed course. Its vast bulk moved with surprising grace for something built by humans, its kilometer-long shadow dancing across the star-filled backdrop of space. In the ship's mess hall, the skeleton crew of 200 discussed the change of plans. Most were veterans who had served on the Horizon for years, and none of them minded the delay. They all wanted one last adventure aboard their beloved ship. Chief Engineer Anna Miller ran her hands along the power core's control panel, whispering to it like an old friend. "Come on, beautiful. Just one more run. Show these youngsters what Earth engineering can do." The Stellar Horizon's massive frame accelerated towards the Epsilon sector, its ancient engines pushing against the void of space. Unknown to its crew, this simple detour would become one of the most talked-about events in Earth Federation history, and the start of a legend that would change how the entire galaxy viewed human engineering. As the stars streaked by, Captain Walker sat in his command chair, fingers drumming against the armrest. After 50 years of service, the Horizon deserved a more dignified end than being torn apart in a scrapyard. Maybe, just maybe, this last mission would give her that chance. Little did he know, the universe had plans that would make the Stellar Horizon more famous in retirement than she ever was in active service. The Stellar Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Epsilon 6, its massive bulk casting a shadow over the small mining colony below. Captain Walker stood from his command chair as the main screen displayed the situation, and his heart sank at what he saw. "Status report," he ordered, his voice tight with concern. First Officer Mark Thompson, one of the few Centaurians serving in the Earth fleet, checked his readings twice before answering. His blue-tinted skin seemed paler than usual. "Sir, the colony's automatic warning systems are going crazy. Long-range scanners are picking up a massive asteroid storm heading straight for this sector." Lieutenant Reed pulled up a detailed scan on the main screen. Hundreds of asteroids, some as large as small ships, were hurtling through space directly toward the mining colony. The storm covered too wide an area to be avoided. "How long until impact?" Walker asked. 43 minutes, sir," Thompson replied. "The colony's shields won't handle this kind of bombardment. They're rated for small meteors, not a full-scale asteroid storm." Walker opened a communication channel to the colony. The face that appeared on screen belonged to Colony Director Peter Brown, and his expression showed he knew exactly how bad things were. "Captain Walker," Brown said, his voice shaking slightly, "we've got 50,000 people down here. Our emergency bunkers can only handle half that number, and our evacuation ships are all out on mining runs. We're sitting ducks." Walker did some quick math in his head. Even if they packed people into every available space on the horizon, they could only evacuate about 5,000. The nearest military vessels were hours away at best speed. His mind raced through options, each one worse than the last. Chief Engineer Miller's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, I've been looking at the asteroid trajectories. The storm's too wide to blast apart with our weapons, even if all our systems were at full power, which they're not." The bridge fell silent. 50,000 lives. Workers, families, children, both human and alien, all facing certain death unless someone came up with a solution fast. Walker paced the bridge, his footsteps echoing in the tense silence. The stellar horizon was massive, far larger than any normal carrier needed to be. Aliens had mocked the design for decades, calling it typical human excess. But now, he stopped pacing. "Miller, what's the status of our shield generators?" "Running at about 60% capacity, sir." "Not enough to." Her voice trailed off as she realized what he was thinking. "Captain, you can't be serious." Walker turned to First Officer Thompson, whose antennae were twitching in confusion. "Mark, how big is the colony's total footprint?" The Centaurian checked his displays. "About 4 kilometers in diameter, sir." "But why does that?" His eyes widened as he understood. "Captain, that's insane. The horizon was never designed to act as a shield." "No," Walker agreed, "but at 8 kilometers long, we're big enough to cover the entire colony." "Miller, if we divert all power to the shields and structural integrity fields, we might survive," Miller finished, "or we might crack in half." "Sir, we'd be betting the ship on a maneuver it was never meant to perform." Walker looked at the main screen, where the colony's lights twinkled below them. 50,000 lives against one aging carrier already destined for the scrapyard. When he put it that way, it wasn't really a choice at all. He opened a channel to the entire ship. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We're about to attempt something that's either brilliant or stupid, probably both. Report to emergency stations and prepare for possible structural damage. We're going to give this old girl one last chance to save lives." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Walker couldn't help but smile. The aliens were about to learn why humans built their ships so big, and the lesson would be one they'd never forget. First Officer Thompson watched in disbelief as the humans around him sprang into action. His antennae twitched rapidly, trying to process their apparent madness. Using a supercarrier as a shield wasn't just unusual. It was the kind of idea that would get you laughed out of any military academy in the galaxy. "Captain," he tried one last time, "the structural stress alone could tear us apart. Not to mention what it'll do to the power systems." Walker was already reviewing emergency protocols on his command screen. "Mark, do you know why humans build such big ships?" "Because you're wasteful," Thompson answered, repeating the common alien view. Walker smiled. "Because we believe in being prepared for anything, even the things we can't predict." "Miller, what's our status?" The chief engineer's voice came through clearer now as crews reconnected backup power systems. "We're waking up all dormant systems, sir. It's like trying to get a sleeping giant to dance, but we're making progress. I've got teams reinforcing the structural integrity fields on decks 5 through 20. "What about the shield generators?" Walker asked. "That's the tricky part," Miller replied. "We're going to need more power than they were designed to handle. I'm setting up a bypass to channel emergency power directly from the core." Thompson's antennae went completely still. "That's not just against regulations. It's practically suicide." Lieutenant Reed spoke up from his station. "Sir, colony evacuation reports coming in. They've moved as many people as possible into the underground bunkers, but there are still over 20,000 people in the surface structures." Walker nodded grimly. "Time to impact." 28 minutes, sir." The captain opened a channel to the colony. "Director Brown, this is Captain Walker. We're going to position the horizon directly above the colony. Our shields and hull will absorb the impact from the asteroid storm." There was a long pause before Brown responded. "Captain, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Your ship will be destroyed." "Maybe," Walker agreed. "But she was headed for the scrapyard anyway. Better to go out saving lives than being torn apart for spare parts." The bridge crew watched as their captain turned to address them directly. "I won't lie to you. What we're about to do is dangerous, and probably a violation of about 50 different regulations. Anyone who wants to take their chances in the escape pods has my permission to leave." Not a single crew member moved. "Miller," Walker continued, "divert all non-essential power to shields and structural integrity. Weapons, recreation facilities, artificial gravity in cargo bays. Shut it all down. We need every scrap of power we can get." "Already on it, sir," Miller replied. "I've got teams manually connecting backup generators. We're going to light up this old girl like never before." Navigation Officer Dave Wilson spoke up from his station. "Sir, I've calculated the optimal position to shield the colony, but maintaining it will be tricky. We'll need to adjust constantly for the asteroid impacts." "Can you do it?" Walker asked. Wilson's hands flew over his controls. "My grandmother taught me to parallel park on Earth, sir. This is just parallel parking in space, with a bigger vehicle, and deadly asteroids. No problem at all." The ship shuddered as its massive engines fired, carefully maneuvering the 8-kilometer bulk into position. Throughout the vessel, crews worked frantically to redirect power and reinforce critical systems. Thompson watched the organized chaos with growing amazement. Every alien crew member he'd known would have rejected this plan instantly. But these humans, they weren't just accepting it. They were attacking the problem with enthusiasm. 15 minutes to impact," Reed announced. Walker sat in his command chair, his expression calm despite the crisis. "All hands, brace for shield activation. Miller, give this old girl everything you've got. Let's show the galaxy why humans build big ships." As the stellar horizon's shields began to glow with unprecedented power, Thompson finally understood something about humans that no alien had quite grasped before. They didn't build big ships because they were wasteful. They built them big because sometimes the craziest solution was the only one that would work. Chief Engineer Anna Miller's hands moved quickly across the main engineering console as warning lights flashed all around her. The massive engine room of the stellar horizon hummed with more power than it had handled in decades. Teams of engineers rushed between stations, their footsteps echoing off the metal floors as they worked to keep the ancient systems running. "Power flow to Section 8 is dropping," shouted Bill Jones, one of the younger engineers. "The connectors can't handle this much juice." Miller grabbed her toolkit and ran to the problem area. "Reroute through the backup circuits. All of them." "But Mom," Jones protested, "those circuits are for emergencies only." "Kid, we're about to use a supercarrier as an umbrella. I'd say this counts as an emergency." Miller pulled open an access panel, revealing a maze of power conduits. "Watch and learn why humans always build redundant systems." Throughout the massive engine room, similar scenes played out as the engineering team pushed the old ship far beyond its design limits. The Stellar Horizon had been built with backup systems for its backup systems, a design choice alien engineers had always mocked as wasteful. Now, every single one of those wasteful systems was being pressed into service. 10 minutes until impact. Core temperature rising. Called out Senior Engineer Robert West from his station. We're pushing way past safety limits. Miller wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked. Divert coolant from the weapon systems. We won't be shooting anything today anyway. The ship's AI chimed in with its own warnings. Warning: multiple systems exceeding design parameters. Structural integrity field generators operating at 147% capacity. Thanks for the update, Miller muttered. Now help us bypass the safety protocols on the shield generators. That action violates multiple safety regulations, the AI responded. Override code Miller Alpha 79. Execute bypass. 8 minutes until impact. On the bridge, Captain Walker's voice came through the speakers. How are we holding up down there, Miller? Remember that time we overclocked your computer gaming system in college? Miller replied while connecting another set of power cables. We're doing the same thing, just with a slightly larger machine. Slightly larger? Walker chuckled. Will it work? The good news is we've got enough power, Miller said, watching as energy readings continued to climb. The bad news is we're basically turning the ship into one giant battery. If the structural integrity fields fail, we'll be flying a very expensive pile of scrap, Walker finished. Do what you have to do. 5 minutes until impact. The engineering deck shook as the shield generators drew more power. Warning klaxons blared throughout the ship, but Miller's team ignored them, too focused on their work to pay attention to automated warnings about things they already knew were dangerous. Power flow stabilizing, Jones called out. But the core temperature is still climbing. Miller rushed to the main console, her mind racing through options. The ship had been built with enough backup systems to handle almost any emergency, but nobody had ever imagined using all of them at once. She looked at the power distribution diagram and suddenly smiled. The coolant systems for the fighter base, she exclaimed. Redirect everything. We don't need them right now, and they were designed to handle emergency landings. That should give us enough cooling capacity. 2 minutes until impact. As her crew scrambled to make the final connections, Miller placed her hand on the ship's main power conduit. The metal was warm, vibrating with the enormous energy flowing through it. Come on, old girl, she whispered. You were overbuilt for a reason. Time to show everyone why. The ship's AI spoke again. Shield power at maximum capacity. Structural integrity fields holding. All systems ready. Miller looked around at her team, who stood ready at their stations despite the danger. Humans had a saying, if it's stupid but it works, it isn't stupid. They were about to put that saying to the ultimate test. Bridge, this is engineering, she reported. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Let's see what this old girl can really do. Asteroid storm approaching. Impact in 60 seconds. Lieutenant Reed's voice rang out across the bridge. The stellar horizon hung in space above the colony, its 8-kilometer length casting a protective shadow over the buildings below. Captain Walker gripped his command chair as the massive ship settled into its final position. On the main screen, the incoming asteroid storm looked like a wall of death. Hundreds of rocks, some as big as small ships, all hurtling toward them at terrifying speed. All hands, brace for impact, Walker ordered. Miller, how are the shields holding? Shields at maximum power, sir. Miller's voice was steady despite the strain. Though I have to say, the manual didn't exactly cover using them this way. First Officer Thompson's antennae twitched as he monitored the sensor readings. First wave of asteroids in 30 seconds. Captain, it's been an honor serving with you humans, even if you are all insane. Walker managed to smile. The feeling's mutual, Mark. Navigation. Status: holding position, sir, Wilson reported from his station. Used every trick my grandmother taught me about parking in tight spots. The first asteroid struck the stellar horizon's shields. The impact made the entire ship shudder. Blue energy rippled across the shield barrier, spreading out like waves in a pond. More rocks followed, pounding against the ship's defenses in an endless barrage. Shield strength holding at 80%. Reed called out, "But we're taking hits faster than the generators can recycle the energy." Below them, the colony's inhabitants watched in awe as the massive carrier took blow after blow. The ship's shields lit up the sky like an aurora, each impact sending cascades of blue light racing across the protective barrier. Core temperature critical, Miller reported from engineering. "We're routing more coolant, but we're running out of systems to borrow from." Another massive asteroid slammed into the shields, bigger than all the others. The ship groaned as the impact forced it sideways, straining against its own engines to maintain position. "Position stabilized," Wilson shouted over the noise of protesting metal. "But that was too close. We shift any further and part of the colony will be exposed." Walker opened a channel to the colony. "Director Brown, status of your people." "All readings stable down here, Captain," Brown replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "I can't believe this is actually working. We're recording everything. Nobody would believe this without proof." The barrage continued for what felt like hours, but was really only minutes. Each impact tested the ship's limits, but the old carrier refused to give up. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits, and warning alarms blared constantly, but the shields held. Shield strength down to 40%. Reed updated. "But the asteroid density is starting to decrease. I think we're through the worst of it." Thompson's antennae suddenly stood straight up. "Captain, large object incoming. At least 3 times the size of the others." Walker leaned forward in his chair. "Miller, we need everything you've got. This is going to be the big one." "Diverting emergency power from life support," Miller responded. "We've got about 5 minutes of air left, but if that rock hits us, we won't need it anyway." The massive asteroid appeared on the main screen, spinning as it approached. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as it drew closer. This was the moment that would determine if their crazy plan succeeded or failed spectacularly. The impact was devastating. The ship's shields flared blindingly bright. And for a moment, everyone thought they had finally pushed their luck too far. The hull creaked and groaned, metal straining against forces it was never designed to handle. But in the end, the stellar horizon held. The massive rocks split apart against their shields, its fragments scattering harmlessly into space. As the last pieces bounced off the barrier, a cheer went up from both the ship and the colony below. "Shield strength at 15%, Reed reported, grinning. "But the storm is passing. We did it, sir. We actually did it." Walker slumped back in his chair, relief but not surprise. After all, humans had always known exactly why they built their ships so big. 3 days after the asteroid storm, the stellar horizon floated in a repair dock near Epsilon 6. The once proud Supercarrier showed clear signs of the beating it had taken. Its hull was scorched, and several sections had been warped by the tremendous forces it endured. But it had survived, and more importantly, so had everyone in the colony below. Captain Walker stood in the colony's main meeting hall, surrounded by reporters from across the galaxy. The room was packed with journalists from dozens of alien species, all eager to understand what had happened. A tall reporter from the Galactic News Network raised his hand. "Captain, what you did was completely against standard military protocols. Weren't you worried about destroying such an expensive military asset?" Walker smiled. The Horizon was scheduled for decommissioning anyway. Better to risk her saving lives than to let her be torn apart for scrap. First Officer Thompson stood next to his captain, his antennae moving in patterns that showed both respect and lingering disbelief. "I should add," he said, "that as the ranking alien officer aboard, I thought the plan was absolutely insane. I still do. But it worked, and that's something my people will need to think about carefully. The colony's main hall had been decorated with pictures of the event, showing the massive carrier lighting up the sky as it took hit after hit from the asteroid storm. The images had already gone viral across the galactic network, causing quite a stir among military strategists from every species. A reptilian reporter spoke next. Chief Engineer Miller, how did you manage to modify the ship's systems so quickly? Our experts say it should have been impossible. Miller, still looking tired from 3 days of repairs, stepped forward. That's because your experts design ships to do one job perfectly. We humans design them to do their job, plus whatever crazy thing we might need them to do tomorrow. All those backup systems you called wasteful. They're the reason we survived. The questions continued for hours. Alien military officers wanted to know about power distribution. Scientists asked about shield modifications, but the most common question was simply, why did you think this would work? Walker's answer was always the same, because it had to. Sometimes the only options are succeed or die, and humans don't like the second choice very much. Later that evening, in a private meeting room, Walker sat with Admiral Hayes and several high-ranking alien military officials. The mood was tense. You do realize, said General Crix of the Galactic Defense Force, that you've completely changed how we need to think about human ship design. Our analysts always thought your oversized vessels were just showing off. Now we have to consider that every human ship might be capable of unexpected applications. Hayes tried to hide his smile. That's the point you're all missing. Every human ship is capable of unexpected applications. We don't build them that way by accident. A message flashed on the room's main screen. The Galactic Council had finished their emergency session about the incident. Their decision was unanimous. The Stellar Horizon would not be decommissioned. Instead, it would become the first of a new class of multi-purpose rescue vessels. Walker read the message twice, then laughed. So after 50 years of being called wasteful, our ship design philosophy is suddenly brilliant. Not brilliant, Thompson corrected, his antennae showing amusement. Still completely insane. But now we understand that sometimes insane is exactly what's needed. As the meeting ended, Walker walked to the observation window and looked up at his damaged but proud ship. The Stellar Horizon's hull would be repaired, her systems upgraded, and her future secured. But more importantly, she had taught the galaxy a valuable lesson about human engineering. Sometimes the craziest design choice is the most practical one, because you never know when you'll need to do something completely unexpected. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, specialized in the unexpected. 5 years after the Epsilon 6 incident, the Stellar Horizon floated majestically in orbit around Earth. Her hull now gleamed with fresh paint, proudly displaying her new designation, HFY Stellar Horizon, Rapid Response Vessel. But the crew still called her the Giant Space Umbrella when officers weren't listening. Captain Walker, now Admiral Walker, stood in front of a class of mixed human and alien cadets at the Earth Fleet Academy. Behind him, a hologram showed the famous images of the horizon shielding the colony. And that's why, he explained to the eager students, human ships have so many backup systems. It's not because we're wasteful. It's because we believe in being ready for anything. A young Centaurian cadet raised her hand. Sir, is it true that the Galactic Ship Design Committee now requires all new rescue ships to be at least 50% larger than previously specified? Walker grinned. Yes, though they hate admitting why. They call it the Horizon Protocol now. After class, Walker met with Chief Engineer Miller, now head of the Academy's engineering department. They walked through the Academy's Ship Design Center, where students from dozens of species work together on new vessel layouts. Look at that, Miller said, pointing to a design created by a mixed team of human and alien students. They've included 3 different backup systems for every critical component. 5 years ago, the alien instructors would have called that excessive. Times change, Walker replied. How's the Horizon doing with her new crew? Captain Thompson is taking good care of her, Miller said, referring to their former first officer who now commanded the ship. Though I hear he still mutters about crazy humans every time they use her for an unconventional mission. They passed by a wall displaying news headlines from across the galaxy. Human ship design philosophy revolutionizes emergency response. Galactic Council adopts Horizon Protocol for all new rescue vessels. Why building bigger ships saves lives. A 5-year study. In orbit, the Stellar Horizon had just returned from another successful mission. The ship that had once been destined for scrap had become the template for a whole new class of vessels. Ships that could be carriers one day, shields the next, and whatever else they needed to be after that. Captain Mark Thompson stood on his bridge, still strange to think of it as his bridge, watching Earth rotate below them. His antennae twitched with amusement as he read the latest mission request. "They want us to do what?" his first officer asked, reading over his shoulder. "They need us to act as a mobile hospital for a colony world whose medical facilities were damaged by earthquakes," Thompson explained. "We'll need to convert half our fighter base into treatment centers." But the ship wasn't designed for that. Thompson laughed. "That's exactly what I used to say. Then I learned something important about humans. They don't care what something was designed for. They care about what needs to be done." In his office at Fleet Command, Admiral Hayes showed a visiting alien delegation the latest statistics. Emergency response times were down 40%. Survival rates in crisis situations had doubled, all because ships were being built with the human philosophy of more backup systems than you think you'll ever need. "The funny thing is," Hayes told them, "we've been building ships this way for centuries. Everyone thought we were just being inefficient. Turns out we were just waiting for the right moment to show why." Back at the academy, Walker finished his day by showing the students one last image. It was a simple plaque, now mounted in every human shipyard, and increasingly appearing in alien ones too. It read, "Build every ship not just for the mission you know it will face, but for the mission you never imagined it would need to handle, because someday, somehow, the impossible will become necessary. And on that day, you'll be glad you built it the human way." The Stellar Horizon had started a revolution in ship design, but really, she had done something more important. She had taught the galaxy that sometimes the best solution isn't the most elegant one. It's the one that works when nothing else will. And that was a lesson worth learning.